Hi, I'm your host, Jürgen Strauss from Innova.Buzz, and I'm really excited to welcome to the Innova.Buzz podcast today from Sydney. A relatively geographically close by guest this time from Sydney in Australia, Dr. Barbara Doran, who is a creativity consultant. She works across a whole lot of different disciplines, both as a scholar and a practitioner, weaving together things like health, the arts, creativity, education, film. We were just talking about her work on film and that she's just done a little video recording and applying all those things to sometimes quite complex global challenges. So I'm really looking forward to speaking with you today, Barbara. Welcome to the Innova.Buzz podcast.
Thanks for having me. It's wonderful to be here.
Now, big shout out to Paulina LaRocca, who was our guest on episode 499 of the Innova.Buzz podcast, and she introduced us and suggested that we have a conversation.
Yeah, I love working with Paulina, and we share a lot of our kind of creative spark together. And she's actually doing a PhD with me at the moment.
All right. I didn't know
Yeah,
that. There we go. I've
where
learned something
we're
already.
exploring. Yeah. And she's actually really sort of probing really deeply into the creative space and some of the deep assumptions we have around creativity and innovation. So it's a space that I find immensely interesting, and I think it will help us all step into that space in a way that empowers us all.
Excellent. All right. Well, I'm really looking forward to talking about all things creative problem solving and how we apply the arts, play, all kinds of different aspects to that. Before we do that, though, what's the impact you're making in the world today, Barbara?
Oh, that's such a hard question. Um, I mean, one of the spaces that I work in is in education, and I think education is well. First of all, I think education is linked to lifelong learning anyway. So for me, one of the things that I see as impact is being able to spark others' imagination, to empower others to take what they are working with and to energize them so that they can kind of creatively take hold of the situation wherever they are, whatever they're working in, and to keep working with these complex challenges that are in front of us. So for me, every time I hear that someone has seen something new, that they've been energized to do something, I know that I'm having impact.
Hmm. Yeah, it's wonderful. And we were chatting before we started recording about this idea of um, awakening that or you mentioned it just then, awakening that creative spark in people. And yet a lot of people say, for example, I've said this in the past, because I can't even draw a stick figure to save my life. I'm not creative. And a lot of people will say that, and yet they're so creative in many different ways. So speak to us a little
Mm.
bit about how do you help people change that mindset of, just because I'm not an artist of the quality of somebody like Da Vinci, therefore I'm not creative.
I think that that's a really good space to step into it, because one of the assumptions is that creativity and art are the same thing.
Hmm.
They definitely share a space, and the practices that artists engage with are deeply rooted in creativity. But then there are so many other ways that we are creative, to cook, to walk, to move, to make connection to each other, to be able to kind of think about something in place and in sound. There's so many practices that we are constantly navigating, and in fact, that what I really think that we wouldn't even be able to exist as
Hmm.
humans if we weren't creative. It's actually linked to living and being able to survive, not only survive, but to imagine what's possible and to kind of get really kind of innovative from moment to moment. So it's an intrinsic trait of being alive. And I guess I just kind of want to pick up on what you were saying there too, about how I constantly am amazed, even though I shouldn't be, how many people do carry this mantra that they're not creative. And I think one of the things is that it's often linked to sort of being an excellent artist, which is partly something that we as a society need to challenge, and we need to kind of
Hmm.
open up the space around how we collaborate together and how we creatively work together. But also, I think we have some cultural assumptions to revisit. So often in primary school and in preschool, we're constantly engaging with creative mediums. We play creatively, we learn creatively. And then you get to high school and it kind of gets put into disciplines and you don't work creatively as much. And then somehow or other, creativity gets kind of aligned with artsy type
Yeah.
subjects. And I'm not dismissing the arts because I'm an artist myself and I love the arts. But I think when I speak to people, it's like that's where they stopped thinking that they were creative
Mm.
because they didn't take those art subjects. So sometimes we kind of need to go back there and maybe even be a bad drawer or be all those things that you're worried about in order to actually find the thing that you've left behind. And I think that that's part of tapping into our creativity is just owning that space again and being prepared to kind of go back to where we left it off or where we think we left it off. Because
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
we start to tap into that, then we start to realize it's actually been alive the whole way in some way, shape, or form.
Hmm. Yeah, I like the idea of going back and revisiting those things and um, just having fun and, like you touched on, play. They're having fun with some of those areas just for the sake of doing it and for the sake of, I don't know, kind of inspiring us to be creative. I often like to reframe that when somebody kind of raises that in that way. And I say, well, have you ever solved a problem in a way that was kind of unusual or resourceful? And I like to use this word resourceful because I think
Mm,
you touched on it earlier about we wouldn't be alive if we weren't creative. And I think, we're all
mm,
resourceful. We all find ourselves in situations where we need to do something to get out of a situation because it's unpleasant and it may be dangerous.
mm,
And
mm.
often we come up with really resourceful ways to address whatever problem that is, and that to me is creativity. How do you see that?
So there's lots of different elements there, but one of the little kind of games that I play in when working in creativity and trying to spark that out in others is thinking about what's in front of us and reimagining what's in front of us. So it's sort of like thinking inside the box, and it's not a new tool. There's all these tools that are around that people who work in creativity and innovation use. But what I think is really interesting is when you ask people to kind of look at what's in front of them and then start turning them upside down and inside out,
Yeah.
and even thinking about what's right in front of them or and what they're not seeing in front of them. That there's these incredible possibilities in all around us, and part of the creative spark is actually having permission to experiment, having permission to have a bit of time, and not taking things so seriously. Because what we do know about creativity is that it functions better when we're relaxed and when we're in a playful sort of mind state. So even if you're dealing with something quite serious, if we can tap into that in a playful spirit, and when I say playful, I don't mean kind of like sort of goofing
Hmm.
around. It's a state of mind that is curious, inquisitive, um, uh, experimental, open to kind of making little experiments, nudging the edges, and is kind of open-ended in its orientation, and not afraid to kind of make mistakes. And we need that, and we need that kind of breathing space to be able to see what's in front of us. But if we're kind of always scheduled, if we've got an agenda, if we're looking to kind of reach an end and we've already got an idea of what that goal is, we're going to miss all the stuff in between. So that playful space is so important. It's kind of like tapping into a very expansive mind space
Hmm.
where you're sort of searching for possibility. And I kind of just want to pick up on the play theme in the resourcefulness, because another kind of adjacent sort of quality that's linked to creativity is play. And one of the people I've read who is a kind of play specialist is a guy called Stuart Brown, and he talks about how as a culture and as a society we almost need to kind of go through a process of um, reframing how we think about play, because play has been seen as something that is linked to childhood. Play has been seen to be something that you kind of do as something that's extra outside of it. And his provocation is that we need, as in the same way that smoking needed to go through a whole kind of cultural reimagining, from being elegant and kind of groovy and all those sort of things that were, and totally okay,
Mm.
to where it is now. He says we need to do that with play as a society,
Yeah.
because we've made it something that is sort of external to when it really is vital to our survival. And creativity and play, I think, go together. And if we can bring those situations into wherever we are and however we work, we can start to sort of see what's in front of us, and tap into those resources.
Mm.
And I think sometimes the best teachers for that are kids, because they're not inhibited about
That's
it.
right. Yeah.
And so they turn things upside down and they get on the ground. And then if you jump forward, I remember learning this with working with some animators years ago. And I was watching how they were developing characters, and they all kind of went outside and they were playing with gesture and posture and getting up and down. And then I started thinking, they're playing with the elements of how to bring a story alive. And it was so encouraging for me at that time to realize that how animators, these very people who are accomplished in their profession, went back down into the play space to find the resources that they needed to develop, something that ended up being quite sophisticated.
Mm. Yeah, there's lots of stuff there. The I was reminded there are a couple of things, particularly in regard to that play. I mean, some of the training programs that I've gone through in my corporate days, there were role plays often,
Mm.
but sometimes there were games, literal games that we played that were kind of metaphors for some situation in the corporate world, and and the learning came out of the game, but part of it was the trigger to remember that then was going back to the game. Because it was a game, you kind of remembered it because it wasn't kind of a role play that was very close to the real situation. It was sort of a removed from the situation and a game and totally out of the ordinary. But the lesson was for these types of situations, often, you know, challenging
So,
teamwork or something like that.
and again, there's so much in that particular one. I keep thinking about creativity and how does that lead to innovation, or doing things new, doing things together, harnessing the inspiration that's going to energize that to happen. Because it's very easy to come up with ideas. Well, I think it's easier to come up with ideas. It's harder to ground them and make them grow or turn them into something that we all share and do. Um, but the games are really interesting because they have boundaries and they have rules, and it's a place and a space where we rehearse things.
Hmm.
So play is that kind of open-ended exploratory space, but then often we will turn play into a game so that we can start to kind of create these scenarios where the learning becomes embodied. So, and then when the learnings become embodied, then it's easier to recall. So you talk about, you just go into these scenarios and you start playing, you play the game,
Hmm.
and the knowledge and the memories arise, and then you start playing. You can start kind of playing in another space with that. And you talked about metaphor as well, and I think metaphor is a really powerful place and space that is linked to play and to games, because metaphor isn't just a kind of an analogy. Metaphor, I draw on the understanding that metaphor is deeply physical. So when we're talking about metaphors, if we're talking about something being heartfelt, it's not it's a saying, but it comes from somewhere because we actually do feel things with our
Hmm.
heart. Or and so it's really interesting to kind of listen to the metaphors that we're using and kind of think about where they sit in the real world and in the physical world and how they may or may not be shaping us. And one of the games that we play is bringing metaphors to the surface, catching them, and then kind of trying to combine them together so that you can, as a creative space, for coming up with new ideas and then thinking about the qualities. So you might even have one that, something like butter wouldn't melt in their mouth. So we've got these sort of cold, clinical sort of not a warm feeling, and then what if they were someone warm-hearted came along and they melted the butter in the mouth. You can start playing with this sort
Mm.
of the metaphors and bringing them into action. And to me, that is also that space of being resourceful. So tapping into those things that we know, tapping into our imaginations, and then using them in a kind of playful game, sort of mashing up with games to bring things alive and to become change makers in that space as well.
Yeah. Yeah. It reminds me sometimes I just have a thought, and obviously unconsciously I'm processing something, and then I'll have a thought which ends up being a metaphor for something, and I don't immediately recognize the connection, but once I make the connection, I'm like, oh, that is absolutely magical. So you talked earlier about catalyzing creative intelligence, and I'm guessing that's kind of an example of something that for some reason got catalyzed. How can you consciously go about generating those sort of ideas particularly?
Yeah, I think that's where having a little kind of toolkit of there's a lot of practices out there that people again, I'm going to draw from the arts here, but it doesn't really matter where
Hmm.
where where you're drawing from, but having a range of different practices and actively engaging an attention to the world that ask you to kind of notice what's happening, but in this kind of open, expansive space. And I think with creativity, there's kind of two prongs to it. One is that we're all kind of wired up in different ways. And when I say wired up, I sort of think of like, there's a wonderful cartoon that I like to think of where you sort of got monkeys and fish and elephants all lined up in front of a teacher, and they're all being asked to do the same thing, and it's very kind of uniform, and it's not drawing on the rich diversity
Hmm.
of what each can do. And I think we're all like that. We all have our own kind of orientations and aptitudes in in what rings and sings for us. Doesn't mean that we shouldn't try and do other things, but so when we're talking about creativity, I think part of the process of creativity is finding those tools and practices that help to spark our particular kind of orientation in the world, and to recognize how they work with others. So I might like cooking and somebody else might like photography, and maybe we want to take those, one
Hmm.
person is going to capture that moment, and that's a process of coming together. But to go back to your question, I think creativity needs practice, and it's a practice of attending to the world. So it's like a fitness. So if you want to kind of get fit at a any kind of physical thing, you can't just expect to just
Yeah.
suddenly rock up and be really great at it. Or even like playing the piano, there's a practice that's
Hmm.
involved. And I think there are lots of tools that can help us to attend to the world in a creative way, and the more we dedicate ourselves to that in just tiny little ways, the more those connections happen, and it becomes an intuitive thing. And I don't say intuition in a lighthearted way. I actually think that a lot of the way that creativity percolates is at an intuitive level. So
Hmm.
it'll be like, oh, I might just go over here. And I think one of the sensibilities that creative people have is that they're more honed to go, I've got an instinct to go over there. I don't have a rational logic reason for why I'm going to go over there, but I can hear that and I'm going to respond to it. Where someone who may be less tuned into that will go, I'll ignore that, or it's not, doesn't seem to have a purpose, so I'm not going to go down that road. And it's not an arbitrary thing. It's a felt thing.
Hmm.
It's linked to a sensing, and recognizing that when to kind of follow that instinct, I think is part of what happens when we build what I call creative fitness.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's a really interesting point. I mean, we're sometimes drawn to do something or to go somewhere for no apparent or rational reason, but if we pay attention to that, so, and even just simply get curious, well, why did that thought come up? Why am I suddenly drawn to that? And that may shed some more light on it. One of the things I'm fascinated by is this whole idea of um, understanding more about neuroscience, how our kind of brains and our mind, whatever that is, another discussion,
Yeah.
but how that plays into the stories we tell ourselves, how it plays into creativity and at that intuitive level. And I know you have explored this quite a bit. So talk to us a little bit more about how do we understand some of this stuff at the neuroscientific level, and how can people maybe like me that are more in the science than in the arts understand some of this stuff and explain it and maybe embrace it.
Yeah. So one of the sort of realms that I'm really interested in, particularly which sort of is drawn from neuroscience, is what do we think the mind is to
Hmm.
start off with? And I know that's another whole
Yeah.
thing, but I actually can't separate it from the notion of creativity, because I think one of the things that has dulled down our understanding of what creativity is, and quite possibly numbed out the kinds of resources that might enter the equation, is how we think of the mind. So one of the things that I'm often talking about is that often think of the mind as something
Yeah.
that's kind of
That's
in
the
the
brain.
bone
Yeah.
helmet up here, but it's actually distributed
Hmm.
throughout our whole body. And even if you were to look at the representation in the brain of our hands, our hands are the most anatomically represented in the brain, in the most diverse represented. So they're linked to motion, to sensation, to touch, to memory, and even just the kind of density of receptors and in our hands. So if you've ever seen the picture of the homunculus, which is a diagram of how the body is represented in the regions of the brain, our hands are massive,
Hmm.
and our lips and our face is massive. So this is sort of to do with the kind of proportions of sensory information that is being relayed to other parts of it. So just thinking about our body as part of our mind changes how we kind of prioritize certain kinds of information. So suddenly things like the senses, touch, temperature, movement, all of these things that I think in sort of times gone by have been hierarchically relegated in this sort of notions of intelligence, have been not necessarily brought up on a platform in the with equivalents to, say, writing
Hmm.
and speaking and all those kinds of things. So when we start to kind of tap into that, we start to see allow for a very different, much more expanded space for what we might consider even intelligence. And then, the other side of it, there's a lot of research around how even that notion actually shapes how our brain communicates. So the kinds of, the thought around what thinking is shapes how we think. So if we think that certain kind of thinking or certain kind of information is more important than others, there will be parts of regions of our brain that will be more active than other regions of our brain. So the thing that I think is really interesting about neuroscience, I wouldn't call myself a neuroscientist. I would love to be, but I read a lot of neuroscience and I find it deeply fascinating. And I think one of the things that's super interesting is that we've got this sort of mapping technology now, where we can see
Hmm.
the regions of the brain that are kind of sparking up, and we can see how they're communicating. So um, the role of the senses, the role of memory, and the role of the nonverbal are becoming
Yeah.
increasingly recognized as super significant in how we evaluate any particular circumstance. So we can have all the logic in the world, but if we've got an emotion running in behind that is overpowering that, that's going to shape the situation. So it opens up the space for emotion, for what I would call embodied intelligence. So things like, these are some of my favorite examples of things like, I meet you in a lift and I give you a warm cup of coffee, and then someone asks you later on, how did you find Barbara? You'd be likely to regard me as a warm
Hmm.
person. But if I gave you a cold glass of water, you would evaluate me as much more sort of cold and clinical, and probably sort of put me in those sort of the qualities of the temperature of actually shape how we evaluate the circumstances, but we would never actually make that logical connection in terms of how we think that we made that connection. So this, to me, this is just amazing sort of stuff in terms of how it opens up what's possible. And there's a whole bunch of stuff to sort of link to kind of hemisphere biases. I could go into that. I don't know how
Yeah,
much you want me to go. How deep you want me to
it
go?
is fascinating, and some of that. I mean, I like to think of triggers as well. We talked earlier about being aware of what's prompted something, or if something's come up for us that is
Mm,
like intuition. Why am I thinking like that, or why am I drawn to that?
mm,
And this whole idea of triggers, and you can be very conscious about the triggers. And one of the most powerful triggers I have is smell. The smell,
yes.
the smell of canola fields in full bloom for me is a trigger. Now, in my honours year in chemistry, I worked on the active compound of canola oil, and it
All
has
right.
that's the odor that comes.
Yeah, right.
And the moment I smell that, sometimes I can smell it even before I see the canola field. And
Yep.
obviously, when I see a canola field, it triggers the smell. It triggers the trigger already. I don't necessarily need to smell it, but that's association. But the smell, if I have that smell, I'm immediately transported, and in my mind, I can see my lab bench in front of me. I can see my desk where
Yep.
my little office that I had there in that honours year, and all of a sudden, I'm seeing all the flask and things, because I used to love building these complex setups, and I can see all of that, and I'm always fascinated by that, because that is such a powerful trigger. I've got other triggers, but that one, and it's kind of, I'm always curious why that one in particular is such a powerful one, because that was an interesting time of my life, but not necessarily, I would say, the
Mm.
most impactful time of my life.
So one of the things that I'm hearing there's probably lots of things that are making that an impactful time of life. But when you bring up smell, the nerve that is linked to smell is one of the only exposed nerves in our central nervous system, and it has a direct line to the limbic system. So that's the part of the brain that's linked to emotion and memory. It's nonverbal, and so it has a faster, more direct link. It's very difficult to override, whereas almost every other sense kind of goes through one or two, I guess you could say, relay stations.
Filters.
Not to say that they don't have direct links to the limbic system as well, but they often will have other networks, whereas the smell goes straight in and then it kind of goes out to kind of conscious processing. So anything that is linked to smell it's actually very difficult to reprogram that. So food poisoning is another example where if you've been food poisoned once, it's really difficult to kind of revisit that. So smell is one of the most evocative of our senses. But I also, what I'm sort of picking up in that story you just told there is, you know, it was probably a time of life where you were very invested in what you were doing. You probably had space and time, and there was probably also an open curiosity. So I would say that there was sort of probably multiple connections going on at the same time, but that almost like the anchor was linked to the scent of canola. So as soon as you kind of have that trigger, it's just taking you into this very kind of expansive spaces. And then again, that kind of links to, I think, the mind state that we're in, and how that kind of links to our memory. So it's to do with the timbre of our memory as well. But when you're talking about that kind of stuff, the notion of a trigger, I think that's also a really interesting space for thinking about creativity, because triggers can be something that can kind of take us to an expansive space, but they can equally be something that actually causes us to kind of go to our default kind of railway tracks of thinking. So that's where having little tips and tricks with creativity can help you to kind of see where you, or start to recognize where your default lines are, and then to kind of look at where there's possible new ways of making connection. So, neurologically, they you can do this they've done a lot of work in therapy, where people who've had some kind of traumatic experience, so that they literally kind of do this process of disassociating that,
Mm.
parts of the brain don't want to make that connection because it ignites
The
the
trauma.
trauma. And so, but if you want to move past the trauma, you need to build lots of connections to kind of, um, still let that trauma space be there, but for it to be dissipated. And so there's lots of connectivity that needs to happen. So they call this kind of um, neurological interconnection,
Mm.
or integration. So it's not that you've kind of got a broken thing that you don't want to ever kind of make connections to, but you find these gentle ways to build the connections around. And that's obviously a trauma example, but it's the same with how we think about anything. So if we've got a kind of very fixed way of thinking, then how, that can block us and blind us. And if we're wanting to innovate or we're wanting to do things differently, we need to start finding these new connections. So how can we kind of tease our imaginations into action? And that's where I think those creative little exercises can be really, really good at stimulating that. And I think one of the easiest ways to do that is to play with your senses. So I've, like things like going, okay, I'm going to have a date with a color today, and I'm just going to notice blue. And if you say you're going to go and notice blue, you will
Mm.
notice blue. And then you can do the next day. You can say I'm going to notice yellow, and just by tuning into that, you'll start to notice color a lot more, and then you'll start to see how it's used in the world, and blah 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 blah, and then that will kind of slowly link back to whatever it is that may or may not be linked to the trigger that you're
Mm.
working in, with, or you can actively bring it into that situation and start to look at that situation by using your senses. So, what's the sound? What could the sound be? What's the color? What's the temperature? Um, what could the movement be? And you can play with it in lots of different ways, and then you start to slowly
Mm.
see the situation from multiple perspectives.
Yeah, I love that. That's the classic reticular activation system, right? It's there's all this blue stuff. If I've chosen blue, there's all this blue stuff that I've never noticed before. All of a sudden, it's popping up everywhere, but it was always there. I just didn't pay attention. So when you
Yeah,
when you buy a new car, all of a sudden that type of car is turning up everywhere. How come there's all these
yeah.
cars suddenly popping up just because I've bought a new one? But it's because we're now noticing them, not because they suddenly have appeared and weren't there before.
Yeah, so that is the wonderful thing about creativity, because there is so much you can
Mm.
kind of never, it's never ending in terms of what you notice. And I just think the senses are such a simple way to start kind of noticing those things. Even if you just step into sound, and you go, okay, I'm going to notice rhythmic sounds
Mm.
today, and then I'm going to notice sounds that are close and far. The world just suddenly opens
Yeah.
up, and you suddenly hear the machines, and there's just so many different realms of possibility. And I would say what you're doing in that, if you kind of go back to neuroscience, is what you're inviting in is the right hemispheres sensibility. So I don't like to kind of use the binary of the
Mm.
hemispheres, because they don't kind of work in an on-off way. They're constantly working together. And one of the people that's helped me sort of understand it the most is I call him a polymath. His name's Ian McGilchrist, and he's a neuroscientist, a psychologist, a psychiatrist, a historian, a philosopher. He's an art historian. He just, and a poet. He knows, he thinks expansively. But because he's been a psychiatrist, he's looked at all kinds of different conditions in which the brain works and doesn't work. And the way that he describes the differences between the hemispheres is that they're sort of like have a different timbre. So they're like both are very important in the orchestra of how we come together and how we operate in the world, but they have different kinds of orientations. And the right hemisphere tends to be more connected to bodily information. and it also is nonverbal. So if we and it also tends to look at the wider context. Or its timbre is to look at the broader situation rather than thinking about doing and getting and kind of ordering and sequencing. So if we have this mode of being in the world that helps us to kind of notice, or these little tips and tricks, so things like, okay, I'm going to notice sound today, and I'm going to notice the sounds that are immediate and rhythmic and the sounds that are in a distance. Even, just giving that 30 seconds every hour is going to change how you notice things. And what you're intentionally doing is inviting the right hemisphere to just notice the context. And then you're creating this kind of dialogue between noticing and doing. And we tend to be, if anything, in a world that is very subsumed with doing and activity and getting. So, if anything, we probably need to give the right hemisphere a bit more of a breathing space.
Yes, my business coach loves to say that we're not a human doing, we're a human being. So take time to be.
That's
Mm,
lovely. I love that. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
All right. Well, and, you've reminded me. I mean, I often apply this in my photography when for example, if I'm walking through a familiar city and I say, well, what am I going to photograph today? And I might say, well, I'm just going to photograph doors today or door handles. And then all of a sudden, wow, there's thousands of really interesting door handles that I've never seen before. And all of a sudden, I have all these wonderful photos.
Yeah, it's exactly that kind of
Mm,
thing. And photography is a wonderful, wonderful example because there's so many possibilities you can focus on. Even just things like shadow and
mm,
light, or direction. You can say, I'm going to look at all things directional, all lines today, and there's some fantastic photographs that just do that, or just going, I'm going to do it in black and white today, so I'm only going to look at
mm.
grayscale. And again, once you start doing that, you might work with that for a week or a day or whatever. But it means that when you are walking in between it, maybe that's not you know, where you're focusing your attention, you'll still notice those
Yeah.
things. And again, that's where it kind of that percolation and what I call metabolism happens. And that's that stuff that just sort of leads to those either those light bulb aha moments or those just gentle, like, oh, what if we did that? What if we did that? What if we bring those together? And it's that noticing that culminates in the arising of an idea that is new or has been unseen or unnoticed before.
Mm. Love it. All right. Well, it's fascinating. I mean, we could go on talking neuroscience for ages. We can go on talking photography in particular, because I know you're
For
a
sure.
photographer as well. And I, it is a good point, though, I think, now to move on to the buzz, which is the same 5 questions I ask of every guest, our innovation round. And I'm sure there are a lot of the themes that we've talked about here will come up again with some practical tips. So, you ready?
Yes, sure I
So,
am.
what's the number one thing anyone needs to do to be more innovative?
Number one thing, anyone needs to be more innovative. I think it's really have a commitment to practicing an attention that prioritizes creativity, and it will naturally lead to
Mm,
innovation.
which is sort of what we've been talking about a lot today, is that cultivating that
Yeah.
attention. Mm,
I guess the other thing that I would add in there is that it's easy to think of that attention as being something that is a personal thing, and I do think it is a personal thing. But I also think innovation and creativity involves others, and there is a space in
mm.
between and a space of connection that is very much about that beingness together. So it's I wouldn't want to forget that we do this as a
Yeah,
collaborative
yeah.
thing more often than not.
Well, a
Yeah.
lot of ideas often come up in conversation with others, right? There's sort of
Yes.
that connection that you get through the conversation. All of a sudden, even today, you've reminded me of some things, and I sort of come up, and I wouldn't have thought of those today had I been on my own.
And that's actually another thing that we like to champion in the space that I work in is play and the power of conversation, and not kind of treating any conversation as incidental, but as dynamic, creative potential.
Mm, love it. All right. What's the best thing you've done to develop new ideas?
Mm. Well, I this is not it was a process and a commitment, and it has led to many. So it's probably going to seem unusual, but when I years ago when I started university, I did an architecture degree, and I started learning. I learned two things. I was asked a question of what is design, which was a fairly
That's a big
broad
question. Yeah.
and yeah, big question. And it really made me think about what is design and what is it to make anything as a human. And then alongside of that, I was doing my architecture degree had the undergrad component was environmental design. So I really started to learn about what it meant to kind of consider sustainability. Short answer is I decided that I didn't want to complete architecture, but I wanted to build a house. And I designed a house with the fairly elementary but sufficient skills to, do the drawings and, the engineering and so on. And I saved up and I bought a block of land in the Blue Mountains, and I built a rammed earth house. And that rammed earth house took 2 years to build. It was mostly built by hand, but the process of actually building and making and doing was the greatest teacher of my life. And I've been to uni and I've done lots of different things, but the being and the doing has shaped me forever.
Mm.
I'm not doing those kinds of things now, and I can work in very different situations and contexts. But I think that deep commitment to investment in the process, and the physicality of it alongside the thinking and the curiosity has shaped a sensibility that means that wherever I go, that kind of open inquiry and alertness to the moment is always there. And I think that shapes, I don't know, I think that that's an interesting
Yeah.
thing to do, but I think it's shaped me profoundly.
Yeah. Fascinating. Yeah. And are you still living in that house? No.
No, no, I'm not. Yeah, the tricky thing when you make things and do things is to decide whether it's useful to let them go.
Yeah.
And oftentimes I do find that the letting go is actually releases you into a new space of
Mm.
possibility. So no, I don't live there anymore.
Yeah. Well, that might have been a difficult one to let go, I imagine. It just sort of would have been an emotional connection to it.
Yeah, it was. But but I think the thing is that the learning that I've carried with it and the constant reminder of the insights that
Mm.
I've gained through that process and how that has led to so many other things has meant that I haven't let go of
Mm.
it. It's just become something different.
Yeah. All right. Do you have a favorite resource you use most often?
Mm. Yeah, I do. I love paint. I'm not a painter. I don't consider myself a painter, but I love painting with inks.
With inks.
And
Oh,
inks, yeah.
okay.
And it's I like drawing and I like painting, but it's not the medium that I would say that I work in or even show. But the so for instance, just what I do at the moment anyway is I make a puddle of water and then I just let the ink float into the water and it makes its own patterns. And there's something that happens with that it's almost like watching a chemical reaction, and just it's almost like watching nature at play.
Mm.
And there's something very kind of relaxing about the process and expanding. So I will often do that, especially on a day where I've been very kind of busy and scheduled, or there's a lot of information coming in. It's almost like a sort of antidote.
Mm.
And you hear people talking about like going for walks and how your aha moments happen in the showers. For me, it's making sure that I have little things like simple things like that, because it kind of I feel like it's actually helping me to cultivate that creative sensibility. And then there's a whole bunch of other things that I do alongside of that. But that is something it's linked to color, it's linked to qualities of a liquid,
Mm.
and movement, and how that kind of links with the real world,
Yeah.
from the day-to-day moment.
Yeah, love it. It's kind of a self-made. I don't know what these things are called, but they're like spheres or inside a container where you've got oil and water with various
Yeah,
colors, and you shake them up, and then it randomly reconfigures itself in some sort of form, and you can sort of get all sorts of different um, images come up. And,
yeah. Yeah, and I get that it's exactly that, and it's interesting that you talk about oil and water, because one of the my photographic practices is to take photographs of oil and water, and so I color oil and water, and it's almost like looking at under a microscope, or at a kind of, at a cosmic level. There's
mm,
sort of these interactions of scale, and for me, I find that really creatively stimulating, and it kind of constantly makes me think about what's possible, and the spaces in between. And I think as we sort of navigate these challenges about how do we live as global citizens, how do we work with the science that we have in front of us, which is linked to complexity. For me, though, those kind of almost molecular um, possibilities somehow kind of keep me thinking and connecting. So I'm looking out there right now and I'm looking at a tree, and it's not like that. But I know if I was to dive into that tree, I'd start to see amazing molecular patterns and processes. And I just like to remember that that's sort of
mm.
happening in between.
Love it. All right. So, what's the best way if you're working on a project, for example? What's the best way to keep people on track, particularly in this creative space where the idea obviously is to kind of go and explore different things and bring new ideas in? But how do you keep people focused on where's the outcome that we're trying to achieve?
Yeah, so I think that's really interesting, because I think if people own it, if there's an emotional charge where you have a sort of, you're motivated, and you've made a discovery and you want to bring that discovery into being, then that's where you have this commitment to action and wanting to bring it into being. But if you don't have that in the team, or in the space, I think it becomes harder to kind of keep
Mm,
the focus going. And so some of the best teams that I've been in is when everyone somehow, even from their, from their all their just sort of different perspectives, has this kind of energy and commitment. And quite possibly, I think it's also linked to the process that comes before wanting to ground something. There's been an exploration and a process of discovery that is shared, and everyone has some kind of buy-in, at a kind of at an emotional
mm.
level. And even when I say emotional, that can be very different for
Yeah.
different people, but there's something there that is driving everyone to kind of bring that thing into being. And I've seen that in filmmaking. I've seen it in teams where you want to, you've got a deadline, whatever it is that you're trying to bring into action. There's time kind of disappears, and there's a kind of funneling into kind of, we're gonna make this happen.
Mm, love it. So,
So I
yeah,
think that's really important.
great. All right. Well, yeah, the final question in the buzz round is what's the number one thing anyone can do to differentiate themselves?
Differentiate themselves. Number one thing to differentiate yourself. This is probably going to sound like a paradox, but I think we are all different from each other, and understanding ourselves as distinctions that are part of a kind of a living
Mm,
ecology, a living diversified spectrum, helps us to see how we are in relationship to others. So it's a process of connection at the same time as a process of understanding what your offer is, or what your role is. And I think that can change from context to context as well. So what you might have to offer in one context might change But I guess this is sort of talking about innovation and how do you kind of help to bring to light that point of distinction. And I think that's where, again, the kind of creative process really helps you to kind of harness what it is that sparks you. And when you know what it is that sparks you, then you know how you fit into the sparks around you.
Yep.
And I know
And
that sounds all very abstract, but I think
yeah.
it
Well,
matters
it
and
touches
deeply
on a
feel it.
couple of points that you also made earlier about the conversations and the connections with other people that are part of that creative process, but then being really attentive to what is unique about me in terms of what I bring into this group and how can I connect that to others who are also bringing in their unique perspectives, and then together we create something much bigger.
Yeah, it's like, I like to go to the arts for these sort of circumstances, but if you think about how a band works, every band member is playing a different
Mm.
instrument, and there's all these sort of cliches around how drummers have particular personas and guitarists and front singers, and yes, everyone does have a different persona, and they what they know and how they know what to do, what they do is very different, but it's the coming
Yeah.
together and the understanding and the giving of space to work together that is actually part of the
Mm.
process.
Yeah. That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
All
Mm.
right. Well, thanks, Barbara. This has been fabulous. Now, where can people find out more about you? And I know you've got a new book, so it's a good point to mention
Yeah.
that now. And also, how can they get in touch to maybe even say thanks for what you shared today?
Sure. Probably the easiest way to get in touch with me is via my UTS email. So I'm at the University of Technology in Sydney. And if you just Google Barbara Doran and University of Technology Sydney, you'll find me. And there's an email there. That's the easiest way. Or you can Google Dr. BD, which is my kind of creative place-based name. And I have a website linked to Creative Intelligence, and you can contact me via that email as well. Or you can look up my book. I'll do a plug, which is called Creative Reboot, and it's catalyzing creative intelligence. And it's a little kind of toolkit, if you like, that helps us do all those things that I've been talking about today, that kind of process of tapping into that attention and kind of honing that attention. So it's what I call a kind of recipe book with lots of different ideas and little exercises. So you can pick up a card as well and go, what am I going to focus on today? This is what I'm going to focus on. And then you can kind of play with it. So it prompts you. But so if you wanted to find out more about me, you could also Google the book, and it's on BIS publishers, but also there's a number of other distributors that have the book in stock, and you can find out more about me that way too.
Excellent. All right. And we'll post those links in the show notes, and certainly the link to the book so people can easily find it. Now, Barbara, what action would you like our listener to take away from our conversation today?
My provocation to anyone who wants to harness their creativity is commit to noticing the world anew, and set yourself your own little challenge every day
Yeah.
to do something that causes you just to take a beat and to notice something that you would not normally spend time noticing. And if you want to go further, not only notice, but do something that is connected to that. And I promise you, new things will come to the surface.
Excellent. So an example of that would be to pick a color, for example, and just pay attention to that. And as I imagine that as you do those exercises, you'll get more creative about the exercise itself and start to discover different
Yeah,
things. Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, so the exercises are kind of designed so if you're one of those people who says I'm not creative, it's kind of almost like a step by
Mm.
step process of like here's how to start, here's how to keep going. But then when you start, the more you do it, the quicker, more adept you'll get. And then there's ways that you can actually play with it as a game, which is another thing we talked about, where you can put things together and you can kind of go, okay, I'm going to get the pink card and I'm going to get another another card, like a green card, and I'm going to randomly put them together, and then I'm going to force these two together and see what I can
Yeah.
come up with. And then later on, you don't even need it because you'll be well and truly able to kind of do, come up with things. But these sort of things, I work with people who are, work in film and art and theatre, who you would say are really accomplished creatives in the kind of conventional term, and they will still go back to these kind of things often when they're just starting. So it's not like we don't need them. We often need our imaginations, jogged, if you like. So yes, but the more you practice it, the more you'll get there.
Great. All right. Well, finally, who else should I get on this show and why, Barbara?
Who else should you get on this show? Well, you know what? I don't know how what's possible, but I would definitely say someone like Ian McGilchrist would be wonderful if you could get
Yeah.
him on, because he's amazing in terms of the creative space. Um, and actually, I would recommend Case Dorst, who I work with. He is a designer and innovator, and has inspired all kinds of people to work in really complex challenges. He does a lot of work in the Netherlands, but he's also worked widely in Australia. He works with the UN on sustainability challenges, but he's very much about how do we spark our creative intelligence so that we can work with these complex challenges in front of us. I find him deeply inspiring, and he has done lots of things
Okay.
in the innovation space.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll get an introduction to Case and to Ian as well and see whether we can bring them on the show.
Yeah, that would be
Hmm.
magic.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Barbara, for our conversation today and for sharing your insights and um, your ideas with us so generously. I've really enjoyed our conversation, and I'm sure there's lots to learn for our listener. So thanks again, and please do stay in touch.
Certainly will. And thank you so much for having me, Ogan. It's been wonderful. I really appreciate it.
Thanks.
Love to hear from everyone else. Okay, cheers. Thank you.